Now, now that you've gotten to the basics and a basically detailed explanation of all the stuff, I mean, this stuff is just projects and specific parts of all of this, um, you can now create your first song. Now, there's a whole bunch of different genres that you can use. However, FL Studio is very commonly known for its synth instruments. So, what I personally like to use for synth and calming electronic songs is Synth Classic Pull Up Flex. Now, along with FL Studio's trial version, you can only get a few of these, which is the only ones I'm going to use for this tutorial if you have the trial version. However, if you have the paid version of FL Studio, you can use all of the ones I have. They'll be free, and I've only spent $30 on Synthesizer Science and Black Octopus Atlantis. So, for this tutorial, though, I am only going to use the trial versions, the trial flex things. So, along with the trials is what I believe is Arcs and Cityscape, General Media Library, Mobile Tuned 808 Bass, I think, Mobile Synth Pluck, and All Bad Compendium. And I don't know if this one was, but I don't think this one was, and so this one too. So those are the only ones I'm going to use for this tutorial. So we're gonna make a thing here. So basically, it already makes a pattern for every new instrument you put into a track. You just pull flex into the first track, it'll load the instrument, and boom. Now you can have a pattern specifically named flex for this flex pattern. Then you can move it around whatever you want. You can resize it if you hover your thing on the edge and pull or push, and then you can move it around by holding your left click, and you can just delete it. However, that's not what I want to do, so I click Control Z, and then it undoes it. Control Alt Z also redoes it. Oh, what was that? Anyways, so FL Studio, it's easy to figure it out. However, the main culprit is how to make the music and how to make it all together. That's the hard part. I have had only about a year of experience on that topic. My music has always gotten progressively better as I've had more experience and more things to test out. But like, it's up to you how the way you want your music. And I have my own way I like making music, and I'm always trying to improve, look for better techniques and strategies and all that stuff. So once you have this, you double click, and boom, it opens up the piano roll. And if there's someone watching who does not have this here, all you have to do is click the arrow, scroll down to view, scroll down to key labels, click all notes. You could do root notes, which I don't know what that, yeah, it's just C's. But personally, I do like it. I mean, I've gotten used to it without the notes here, but it's nice to know. It helps. So we're gonna start off with a basic C note and see how it works. That sounds really good. We're gonna resize it to the first full bar. Every like darkish line you see here is well, actually no. I think every dark-ish line you see here is gonna be a quarter of a bar, and every darkest line you see is gonna be an actual bar, a full-on bar. So we're gonna do it for 1/4 of a bar. We're gonna X out of here. We're gonna go over to Flex and check out our instrument presets. Right now we're in Arcs and Cityscape Dystopian Lead. This is like the first instrument it'll put in if you pull up Flex. However, you have a lot of options here. So let's screw with some and see which one sounds the most calming. So we have 70s bells, Synthsol, 80s theater. Ooh, that's a nice one. So, personally, I really like the 80s theater one. So over here, it looks confusing at first. However, you really get used to it quickly. This is just the way it looks. So when you play a sound, it's like a little waveform. You can also change it to do this, like a spectrograph or something. This, which I don't really know what that is. Vector scope. It shows up in the top right, top left corner. And then you have this is the spectrogram. This is the spectrum, I guess. I personally like this one. It doesn't really matter. It creates the same sound, but it just looks different visually. You have filter, which kind of changes the way it sounds. So why don't we double tap here and make it do a full bar, 2 full bars, so we can get like a little basis of it. Also, here's also the time. I think I forgot to mention that. So let's come back into here, double click that. So let's make half positive filter. It's more of a muffled sound, and what if we do all the way? You can't even hear it at all. So let's see what it sounds like with only like a 25% filter. It's muffled. This would be great for automation clips. Automation clips is something I will show to you soon. Just not quite yet. You have vibrato, which makes it go woo. You have unison, which kind of makes more of the same instrument, I think. I guess it makes more of a grainy sound. Comspa. What's this? That's that. Anyways. Then you have reverb. Which is more reverberation. Delay. So it's more of a reverb effect. Then you have 2 other ones that are probably empty. Then you have pitch. Every 12 semitones is a full octave, which means that, let's say you have a C note, 12th octave would be the next C note up 1 octave, and 24 would be the next C note up 2 octaves from the original note. Same for the negative 12 and negative 24. Instead of going up, it goes down. Then you have cutoff. Can't even hear it. And then you have resonance, which makes more of a grainy sound, I think. Envelope amount. Sounds pretty neat, but I'm gonna just keep that null. I don't usually mess with the filter. You have envelopes. I don't quite know how to use these yet. I don't know what they do. And when I try to use them, it doesn't work out for me. So, I don't know how to use these, unfortunately. But I'd never touch them, ever. You have master filter, which is just like this and this, basically. You have delay, which is similar to this, but with more settings. You have reverb, which is also similar to this, but with more settings. Then you have limiter, which limits how much volume can go through. And then you have, like, out, which is just volume. So, that's basically this. And then you have, you can also try some things, like a randomizer button. So you can do a random preset. It just did the next one down, so we're going to do it again. Test the pipe. Now, all of these instruments will have different macros, which is what they call them. So mess with them a little bit, see how they sound, and if you like them, you can use them into your project. So we're just gonna do 80s theater because it sounds the nicest, and we're gonna put up the filter a little bit, make a little more calming, warm sound. Now, that's basically all this, and this is what we can use for the first instrument. Synth projects can usually have a whole bunch of instruments or very few instruments. It really depends. So if you have not noticed, the amount this pattern, or the longest pattern is how long the song will be before exporting. So when this reaches the end, it will go back like that. So what I like to do is that if I want to make it last longer, for example, a fade-in effect, I increase it by at least a bar or more. So then it gets a little fade-in, and then you get to really feel it. However, you can also do this to increase a duration of a sound. And then I just increased it by another 2 bars. So now it lasts longer than just those 2 bars. It lasts a total of over 4 bars. So that's a nice sound. What if we want chords? Chords are another type of music theory with knowledge that you'd need to understand. However, I can teach you some basic chords right now. C, E, and G create this nice sound. C, A, and F. C, A, and I think this note goes together to create a little more scary sound. C, E, and A. C, E, and G sharp. Another type of minor sound. And then back to G. Really nice resolvement and all that. So that part's really music theory. There's way better videos out there about music theory than anything I can teach you. However, just some basic things would be this. Sounds kind of weird. This. 2 notes together right next to each other doesn't sound the greatest. However, one thing is if you're trying to make a chord with multiple octaves, D, D, and E sound really good. As they are together, close together in note, they're different in octave, which can create a nice sound. See? It's very nice to me, at least. So we're going to put this back to C as it's one of the basic chord progressions you can progress out of. One more kind of more advanced chord progression is C, G sharp, and I think E. Now, B, G sharp, E creates that nice sound. So we're just going to put this down to G, and then we're going to shorten this to 1 chord progression per bar. So what you can do is that you can click this, and now all of the notes will go that exact length. So it's really useful. So I can just replace that, delete that, right click, left click, and boom, notes that create a chord. So let's create a chord progression. A chord progression is multiple chords layered out like in a row. So we're gonna do C, A, F. So sounds really good. 2 basic chord progressions that go right, or 2 basic chords that go really well in a progression. Then we have room for 2 more bars, which we can have multiple more chords. I mean, you can put in as many chords as you can. You can put like 4, 8, 16 squares is in 1 bar from this like viewpoint. Or 16 squares is in 1 bar, I think, generally. Unless you go out more. Yeah. And then you use the scroll wheel on the red bar to zoom in and out like that instead of having to drag this. And then, so basically, you could basically make 16 chord progressions. It might not sound the greatest with this type of effect on, because it has more of a, like, gradual fade in and out, which wouldn't be great for quick, snappy movements. But you could. But personally, I want to go with the basic, simple, predictable, but pretty chord progression to use in this. So you have C, E, G chord, F, A, C chord. And then you really have to experiment to kind of get the right chords you want. So let's see here. So if you think of something that would go well, like after the second chord progression, I guess I sung a D. So I would have to make a chord progression with the top layer being D. Also, the top note will always be the one you hear most prominent. F is the note you'll hear most in the background, and A is kind of in the middle. Yeah. So when we make a chord progression from D, we can use a similar similar bass note, and let's try a similar middle note and see how that sounds. So let's skip to 2 by clicking 2 up here, or anything here. Then it'll start from there. So that sounds nice. So now we have one more. So let's resolve it in a nice manner. So you have this. So let's click 1. That sounds good. A C to a D to an E. A nice step manner, which creates a really nice resolvement. So let's experiment a little bit. I usually like to go with about three like grids, so like 3 semitones, so it can sound the best. So like around here, 3 gap is good, but a 4 gap can also be good. That sounds nice. Let's resolve it with a nice bass note. That sounds really good. And there we go. That's our chord progression. Also, if you didn't know, I'm holding the left click and moving my mouse to make this go. So it's really nice. You also have velocity control, which can give you a more realistic sound if you're trying to do it. The best way that you can do it is that if you go up here to Tools, the wrench, scroll down to Randomize, come over to Velocity, and randomize the velocity a little bit. You can really randomize it. Some will go higher than others. So let's see how that sounds. I like it. It changes the way a What? That was weird. It changes the way a chord can sound. So for example, if you randomize it enough, E is basically the highest and loudest note. They're all the same value, but E was the highest and loudest. But if you change the pitch change the velocity and the volume on that, C could sound the highest instead of E. So it really depends how you use it. I don't usually touch it too much though. It's probably not what you're supposed to do, but that's just what I do because it's still a confusing topic. So now that you create your first chord progression, you can now exit out and look at what you made. So then we can let this out a little bit. And let's let this out a little bit so it gradually fades out. Then we can exit out just a little more to make sure that the fade-in ends. There we go. That's basically your first song. It's light, it's short, but sweet. And it's nice to use for just kind of a test or something else. So that was your first chord progression. That's your first instrument that you can try. And we can add more. We can add so much more. You can add as much as you can. Like, it's almost unstoppable to what you can add. So, like, you can add so much. You can add all of this. There's so many tracks. And if you want to make it, like, if you want to make it faster or shorter without messing with the notes, you can just change the tempo instead of having to rearrange all the notes. So let's roll this down a little bit, not that far. Let's put it to 111. Then you also wouldn't have to hold it as long, too, for that, too. I'm just going to put it to 120. That's nice enough. So, now that you have a basic idea, the rest is just music theory and how you want your tracks to sound. Now, if you want another track, you just scroll flex into here. Or any of these, you can experiment with any of these. I also have stuff download, so if you scroll down to VST, that's where you can find your installed that you installed yourself. So, for example, I have a guitar sound. I'll quickly show you how this works. So we're going to put that into track 3. We're going to delete that. We're going to delete this as well. We're going to click pattern, so I only listen to this one over and over. Sounds really nice. It's a nice sound. It's kind of funny. You can definitely change the rhythm as best as you can, especially if you want to hold Alt, and it'll temporarily not snap to the grid, so you can put it as short as possible. I guess it glitched. Yeah, it must have glitched or something. Like that. And you can Alt, and then you can also move it off the grid too. Like that. Anyways, it's the Alt button if you want to not have it snap to anything. And then you can have so many possibilities with this. It's crazy. And then if you have the trial version and you can't export it using FL Studio itself, because you probably have trial or something, just screen record it and it will save for you using a stream record. So that's basically how you make a song. It's really easy. Your imagination is the limit, and your knowledge can also be the limit too. And then if you do it enough, you'll get enough experience, and you can post more and more onto Spotify places. I use DistroKid for around $38, $37 a year, with the second membership, which allows me to have up to 2 artists, which is all I really need, because I'm not like a label or anything crazy. But that is how you make your first song in FL Studio. And the next part will just be me explaining other specifics, like automation clips, which is kind of important for when you want to make gradual effects. And then we can learn, and in that we can also learn about the mixer and the slots of effects you can use. So that, and then I guess you have an equalizer here, but this is your first song if you followed exactly what I did. And I'll see you in the next one. And I don't know how many more parts I can make, because there's a whole bunch that was explained. But any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will get to you as soon as possible.